Good evening and welcome. It is All for United. We are back again. Only this time we are back with football back. 3 points under our belt. We're not quite top of the league anymore, but I think we still feel it. You'll notice there's 3 of us here today. We do have another person just on his way. He's just crawling out from underneath the thumb of shopping, which is obviously an important thing to do. You've got to do it every week, but still, he will be here shortly. That's Mr. John Commode from the US of A. But for now, we will say hello to the people that are with us, and that is, of course, Mr. Stu Willie. It's been a while since we've had you on, but lovely to have you here. How you doing, sir?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Bit of a disaster befell me this afternoon in a friendly. I've got a damaged ankle now, so I'm a race against time for next week's opener. But we'll get there. I'll either get the Zimmer frame out or I'll get the Lenny Yoro boot on for the next.
Say you're not putting out a Luke Shaw here, are you?
No, you must be joking, crikey! I've played with much worse. I've played with a lot worse actually than our good old mate Luke Shaw. So, but apart from that, yeah, good. We'll talk about the game. We'll get into that a bit later. But yeah, great to have football back actually in all aspects. Quite a decent game. A couple of games today. Arsenal fluked a victory, didn't they? You know, the Scousers got lucky. Ipswich rolled over and had their belly tickled in the second half. You know, so looking forward to tomorrow's games. So it should be interesting to see where City and Chelsea pitch themselves. I think that'll be the game to watch tomorrow. But apart from that, all good.
It is. It's nice to have our footballing weekends back. And lovely to say hello to everybody else who's in the chat nice and early already. NT is here. Good to see you. Benny, always like to have you there. Breaking news, we have organised a date for Benny to make his return to All for United. So get yourselves ready for it. It's in about 10 days' time. So Brilliant. We're very much looking forward to having Benny back. Andrew Wall's in the chat as well. Hope you're okay. Anubi, hello, winner from Ghana. And we're going to talk about the winners from Friday. So it's even better. Excellent stuff. And yes, John is joining from the States. It does take a while for the stream to get to him. Good. Dan, you're here as well. How are you doing, sir? Weren't bad, was it?
I'm just glad football's back, just in every aspect. Even though, like, within 2 days, I'm going against the refereeing decisions already. I'm just so glad it's back. Like, the weekends are complete again. Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about the performance, but I was pretty happy, to be honest. Thought it was quite good.
I have to say, in the group chat, you were unusually optimistic.
For a change.
Which was lovely. So, long may that continue for sure. And that's really where we've got to start. The game, obviously, Box, lovely to see you as well. Well done. Hello to you. I was in a funny situation last night because we were just briefly talking backstage, Stu and I, about what we thought of the game last night. And I can't sit there and say it was a masterpiece. I'm not going to put it up there. It's not going to make my top 10 Man United games of all time. But it was one of those funny ones because at 0-0, I wasn't quite sure what to think. Like, the performance was better, but the result at that point wasn't. So I was sitting there trying to situate myself in the position of, this is better than last year, we lost last year. This is better than last year, we lost last year. And I kept on saying that to myself. And then, of course, we scored, which was a rather wonderful goal. We'll get to all of that. But what was your overarching thoughts of the performance itself and, of course, the game and the result? And Stu, we'll kick off with you as well.
It was a typical first match of the season game in every aspect, in the way that we played and the way that I expected Fulham to approach the game. It was obvious what Fulham were going to do. It was obvious what Fulham were going to try and target. We're going to try and target Martinez against Adama Traore. It worked once. It didn't work again. But we didn't really take a foothold in the game of any note. And I'm not really talking about a proper foothold. I'm talking about an irregular kind of pattern of play which went in our favour, really, rather than what you would class as a foothold. Until probably 25, maybe even 30 minutes into the game. But did Fulham look particularly dangerous? Probably not. So it was one of those where the game looked like it could completely fizzle out, or it was a game that could really catch fire, and it did neither. It didn't fizzle out and it didn't catch fire. It was a very open-ended first game of the season. I thought we played like Dave. We didn't play particularly spectacular, but we played okay, and that's all you need to do. You just need to get 3 points. Well, you need to get 6 points really from the first 2 games of the season, because if we start losing points to likes of City, likes of Liverpool, likes of Villa, then catch up this season is going to be impossible. It really is. You're going to have to go toe to toe till I think the last 2 games of the season to get anywhere. And I'm including top 4 in this. When you look at the teams in and around where we're likely to be, the strength in depth, the way that these teams are playing, the players are bigger, they're stronger, they're more adaptable. So I think that will be interesting. In terms of individual performances, Harry Maguire was on a different planet to the Harry Maguire that we've seen the last 2 seasons. I thought he was tremendous. People were saying he didn't have a particularly good game. We won't go into those morons who know nothing about football. We've spoken about them before. They're the same people that blame Rashford for not shooting, instead of passing to Garnacho. Well, he put the ball behind him and all that kind of nonsense. They're just idiots who don't deserve any kind of platform, certainly the platform that they've got. Mazraoui, and we'll talk about it a bit later. Was absolutely terrific. He was just, I'll talk about him a bit later. Thought Kobe Mainoo was good for about 60 minutes. I thought Bruno had an indifferent display, to be honest. You'd have expected him to put at least one of those 2 clear-cut chances away. And it's a different game of football. We go in and win the game 3-0 if Bruno scores in the first half. And that's why I think we got nervous as the second half progressed. Our passing wasn't as crisp as what it should be. But look, I was more than happy, indifferent, as I said to you, Baz, behind the scenes, but I was more than happy with where we got. And I think listening to Martinez after the game, listening to Ten Hag after the game, listening to Zirkzee after the game, I think Brighton away next weekend, will be hugely difficult. They put in a really impressive performance today, but we should go with a bit of heart that we can get 2 from 2. So all in all, I was kind of pleased in the general terms of the game.
Yeah, and I think really, Dan, that's sort of where we all were, was just kind of pleased. Nobody seems to come out here and gone, well, that's title-winning performance right there. But everybody is, I think, rightly content that it is better than it was last season. And, I mean, it's very interesting because I think it was Box, he put the positive was Fulham being reduced to 2 or 3 chances, while we had 8 or 9 chances. Now, the stats aren't quite like that. We had, I think, 14 shots. They had 10. But we were far superior on pretty much every stat, with the exception of corners. They had 1 more corner than us. But, Dan, what I did want to ask you about was, I think, where NT put it, which I think was spot on, really, which was about the season, our shots last season. That was it. He said there we conceded 20 shots in our opening day last season, and that became an average. We were just conceding, hemorrhaging shots. And I think that's what was so good about this performance, Dan, was that defensively we did look sound. I think I only had heartburn on about 2 of those corners. And actually, other than that, I felt defensively like we were doing really, really well. Where did you sort of stand in the whole of the game?
I thought it was a good performance. It's very much a performance where the defence was probably the best part of the performance in general. They seemed in more control than the attack. If the attack was firing yesterday, we would have scored 4 or 5. And I don't think that would have been too far off the cards, to be honest. Bruno could have scored 2. Rashford could have got 2 assists. Garnacho definitely should have scored at some point. So it was just indifferent up front. Bruno's come out, I don't know what platform it was on, and said, he apologises to all the fancy football people because he could have got 22 points yesterday, and he was getting in the right positions and he was decent, but just times you would expect him to score, or we've seen him score 9 out of 10 times, he was missing. So it's just one of those games. But I was honestly, and I'm not just saying this, I weren't ever really nervous when Fulham went forward. We looked, I think they only had 2 shots on target, and one of them was a 25-yarder from a defender, and it was a decent save. Yeah, it's a save that you would expect him to make, even though it was a good save. I thought we did really, really well. I've watched a few games this weekend, to be honest, and I've not come away thinking that any one team's put a magical performance in. I think we're all going to be finding our feet for the next few weeks. I think Benny's got his spot on what he said earlier. Getting as many 3 points as you can between now and the international break, and the performances will come. The positive thing for me was you could see they were starting to be on the same wavelength when they was pressing. They was pressing at the same time or similar times. The gap in midfield wasn't as big as we've seen. Defensively, we looked solid. Stu alluded to Martinez got done by Traore in the first few minutes, and you thought could be a difficult afternoon. Shut him down. The next time it happened, shut him straight down. Didn't happen again. So yeah, I was honestly very, very positive, and I would have come away with the same positivity if we didn't score the 88th minute winner, because we should have scored 3 or 4. And when you come away from games thinking, well, we've created 3 clear-cut chances there, we're probably going to win games when we do that. So as long as we keep with that sort of performance, I'm quite happy, to be honest.
It's interesting you're talking about the team maybe getting on a bit better and the performances maybe being a bit better as we move on. It's almost like Ten Hag was correct when he said that all of the teams won't quite be ready yet because of pre-season really not being, as we discussed during pre-season, a massive waste of time. He has arrived. He has finally got back from Walmart or Target or do it all equivalent, the B&Q equivalent, Home Depot, or maybe even the 7-Eleven. But here he is. John Commode has arrived at last.
Yeah, and yes,
lovely to have you. How are you? And what did you make of it?
I'm good. Thank you, everyone. It's good to be back. And yes, we went through several shots, but the last one was Target. So, but in regards to the actual game, I thought we deserved the win. We were solid in defence, I thought. I know Fulham had a couple of chances. I'm sure we'll mention that 2-on-1 they had with Pereira and Maguire stopped it. No, I thought if there's any criticism of the game, much as we've seen in pre-season last season and also the Community Shield, we just didn't take our chances. And if I'm looking at improvements for this year, we need to start scoring more goals, I feel, in the league. And we should have had at least 3 goals yesterday with the chances we had. And but I was impressed. We were more solid. I think if you look at the last 2 opening days on the Ten Hag, the Brighton game we lost 2 years ago, the Wolves game we won, but it was, we were lucky. But whereas yesterday, I thought we're good value for the win. And if you look at the season comparing season, that's already 3 points gained on what we didn't have last season because Fulham obviously beat us at home. So it was a good performance. Not perfect by any means, but it was good that we were solid. I thought we pressed pretty well during the game. I'm sure in time we'll start burying a few more chances. The more fitness levels grow over the coming weeks. But overall, it was a good performance. Start off the season. Most important thing of all, we got 3 points.
Absolutely that. So I've been thinking long and hard about how to do this show today, and I have decided I'm going to impose a time limit on our discussions to ensure that we get through everything. So I wasn't sure if to go with 3 or 4. I think I'm going to go with 3.5. because that's in the middle. So I'll give you 3.5 minutes.
You're going to put a clock up, Baz. You're
What
going
you
to
need to get.
put a clock up.
The joy about me is that I'm a teacher, so I'll just look at what the time says. That was 3 minutes 30 after I finished.
Yeah.
But purpose for that is because there's a lot to get through, and we would like to get through it and make sure everybody gets a go, of course. But what I really wanted to chat about to begin with is the formation, because I don't want to go really into the were you surprised with who was picked. I think all of us picked the vast majority of the team. Dan certainly said in the in our group chat that he missed out on one. I missed two out, basically. I had Dillet starting. But for me, it was the formation. It feels like a sort of a 4-2-2-2, effectively, that's sort of going on there. And I don't know. I was looking at the formation myself and thinking, where do we put Zirkzee? Where do we put Højlund when he's fit? And that's where I was worrying, because I can see whereabouts what it is that he's trying to do. I can see that he's playing with the two sort of false 10s through false 9s through to a degree to try and make them cover that midfield a little bit more. And it was working. The pressing was a lot better. There was loads of positives out of what he did. But sustainability, is it sustainable? So looking at that formation, do you see it staying like that? If so, where do you see the likes of Rasmus and Zirkzee going into when they inevitably do get their chance within the club? So, Dan, I'm going to let you kick off on that one. Is that a formation that you're expecting us to maintain?
No, would be my short answer. I think it'd be a 4-2-3-1 when Højlund or Zirkzee come in to start. That's just the way I would go with it. I think the 4-2-2-2 works against the Liverpools, the Cities, the Arsenals, because you need that high press. You need, in essence, you need the legs. I said it in the chat yesterday. I don't think he trusts the midfield out and out yet. He's still a bit nervous about the gap maybe being too big, people leaving position, which is why you started the 4-2-2-2. But no, I think we'll go to a 4-2-3-1. And then I'm going to go on a limb and say that I definitely think we're going to bring in a midfielder before the end of the transfer window. I don't know who it's going to be, but I can see him bringing someone in. Casemiro, I thought, was watching back and looking at stuff. I genuinely think he was the best player on the pitch yesterday. But he was gassing after like 85 minutes. So he's not going to play every game. We're going to need a replacement. He's going to need to be able to adapt in games, and he can't do that at the minute. The options just aren't there. So no, my answer would be no on that one. I think we will change to a 4-2-3-1.
Interesting. And also pleased to see that you've come over to my side of the fence on the man of the match, as I knew that you ultimately would when you watched it back properly. Stu, we were speaking about it again in the group chat that we have, and Andy Beanie came out and he was a little bit worried that it was a bit negative against the likes of Fulham. I argued actually I thought it was quite a good idea still, because it worked against City. Why not work against Fulham? Let's not be, too elitist about this. We lost to them in this fixture last season. What did you make of the formation? And are you like Dan? Can you see it being changed when we get other personnel in?
Well, he had to play a 4-2-2. That's what you want to call it last night because of the personnel. I was on this show 2 weeks ago, Baz, and Dan, and you will both recall that I said that he will go to a 3-5-2. I said with the personnel that we're buying, Dillet wasn't in at the time, if you remember, guys. And I said we'll go with the 3-5-2, and I gave you my reasoning for that, and I stick to the fact he will go with the 3-5-2. It's quite pleasing to hear. Mr. Keane backed me up. Although I did write Gary Neville a private message to say you were 2 weeks too late, pal. Should have come and said that on All For United with me. But I can see three formations for the first time. I cannot believe we've actually got flexibility within our play. And if Dan's right, and we get a defensive midfielder in, whoever that may be, and I'm probably thinking it will be Agate if you believe the press reports this evening, he's fed up with it and he's pushing for a move to us. Then once Yoro is fit, and De Ligt is up to speed, you are going to see that 3. Not all the time, but more often than not. And the reason for that will be when you looked at Mazraoui last night, for example, for the first time in a long, long time, we can all of us turn around and say, we've finally got a professional footballer. We've signed a professional footballer, because a professional footballer can take any pitch at any place in the world and play football. And that's what he did last night. It was just my day job. That's what I do for a living. That's what you want. We've not had that for a while. You bring in Agate, not necessarily Casemiro, because I think there's an argument for both, but he's got the ability to drop in when Yoro progresses the ball from the back 3, so to speak. Maguire and Dalot as wing backs. But you're all going to turn around and say, well, that leaves no Garnacho, it leaves no Ahmad, it leaves no Rashford. Because I think we should go 2 at the top. Split the centre halves and allow Bruno that role in between, that hybrid 8, 9 and 10, or 8, 10 and 9 as it would be. And I think we become a more dangerous proposition. You have Agate, Casemiro, and Kobe Mainoo, Bruno and Mount. You've almost got 2 players, finally, apart from the fullbacks at this present time where we are today, to be hugely dangerous. It's unfortunate for Maguire, because I'm pretty sure you're going to want to talk about Maguire later. The way that he played last night was commanding, but I think eventually you're going to see a 3-5-2. People won't like it, by the way; they'll hate it. But Johnny K will tell you, De Ligt has played in a 3 at the back before. Leach has played a 3 in the back before, and Yoro is skillful enough to play at 3 at the back.
As is Maguire.
As is Maguire, and as that's England. You're absolutely right, Johnny K. You're absolutely right, and people forget that, namely me. Dan would have picked me up on that, though, wouldn't you, Dan?
And Luke Shaw as well on the right as well.
But the key to that will be the Agate ability to be able to swap and sit in, when Yoro progresses. That's how I see it going, Baz. And I think there'll be 3 formations. I think the 3-5-2, the 4-2-3-1, and the 4-2-2, whatever you want to call it. I think we've got the ability to do that for the first time in as long as I can remember.
Very good. You had 5 seconds left there. So
I know. I timed it.
Timing. Well played, sir. That's what I like to see. John got a lot to live up with there. We'll just have to point out here because it's been put in. Benny's just put a time limit. I hope when I return that scrapped because I can't do time. Benny, I'm that excited to have you back on the show that I might just get nobody else on at all, and we'll just have a Benny monologue, a Benny rant. Perhaps that's what we'll call it. Rants with Ben.
I want to come on when Benny's on. I want to come on when Benny's on.
We can have on the women's channel. There used to be Matt and Benny lives at Saturday Night Live. So maybe we should bring that back.
So yes, I can't wait to hear what Benny's thoughts are. He's a very passionate Manchester United fan and a very positive one too. So very interesting to hear what he's got to say when he's back on. But John, you've spoken a lot as well about the way that you think the team should be set up. Do you go along with what Stu says there with regards to the formation?
Yes, I think I've been thinking for some time now that I think not just the United, I think we're due a formation change in the Premier League. So in the past 20 years ago, it was a 4-4-2. As obviously Conte tried a 3-4-3 when he was Chelsea manager. Overall, we've had a 4-3-3 formation. So I think the Premier League is due another formation change. And I think you're beginning to see, especially with the players that we brought in, that it's, as Stu mentioned, that you got players now where you can adjust your tactics and your formations based on who you're lining up against and also what you have available. As Stu mentioned, I don't think we have much choice other than the setup. That Zirkzee wasn't ready to start. He obviously got the winner, but we didn't have an out-and-out forward to start the game. So you have to adjust to that. And also, I think with this adjustment, I can see a scenario where, like Stu said, we can have 3 at the back, De Ligt, Martinez, might even throw Luke Shaw in, Maggiore. He
can play there. He can play there, Johnny. You're right. Yeah,
and I think Maggiore is I know it's only one game, but it already looks a bargain, 15 million, doesn't it? The way he's, and as much as I like Wan-Bissaka, I can already see. I think we've upgraded there straight away, and I think he could potentially have the ability to be a wing back, possibly in that kind of formation. The problem is we don't necessarily have one on the left side. Maybe Dallo might do it, but that's one area we might have to look at going forwards. As for the overall game, it was. I think it's also about how you when you think of the pressing we were doing. I remember Jose Mourinho, I think it was 4 years ago when we beat Chelsea 4-0 on the opening day. And Jose Mourinho was in the studio. What he was saying was that you got to maintain a shape going forward. So if you got to press as a whole team. If you're going to sit back, you got to do it as a whole team as well. You can't have any gaps, which, the big space in the middle, which we did have last season. It did happen occasionally yesterday, but compared to last season, it was much better. So for me, it allows you to squeeze up the pitch as well. It allows you to get more players forward. I was also thinking that when you think back to the olden days, like the 1950s, the formations they used to have like 3 defenders at the back. You'd have like 2 players in front, protecting, and you'd have about 5 forwards. And I think while it won't be quite like that, you can see with that formation, a 3-5-2, it will be quite similar to that, where if the wing backs push forward kind of thing. So it can be, an evolution in the style. But based on what I've seen, it's definitely something they're working on. I did start to see the last couple of games of last season, as bad as it was a season, we saw it in the Newcastle game, the Brighton game, and also the cup final against City. So effectively, we've had 5 good performances in a row now, if you take everything into account. So for me, the personnel we brought intelligently. We haven't overdone it in terms of like price we paid, and already I think we look like more competitive team and will be hard to beat as well. So yeah, that's what I would say.
You're right. 2 of you have just cut it right to the line there, but good job.
Johnny Gay.
Just about.
Yeah.
It's all kicking up on the Super Cup. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was our new signings, because it was a heck of a game. I think a lot of us weren't quite sure who would start in terms of out of the 3. I think we all knew that Mazraoui was going to start because we just didn't have any fullbacks that we would have liked. We'd sold one, and another one was injured, and another one was apparently about to have a birthday. So they let him out of his little hole that he seems to be hiding in at the moment. But in he came. Mazraoui came in. Now, I thought he was going to play right back, and he did. So that didn't surprise me too much. Dallo went to left back. I found it interesting, Dan, that Mazraoui started, De Ligt straight to the bench and not put on straight away. Same with Zirkzee to a degree. We'll get to Zirkzee. But just talking about that defence a little bit more, we've spoken about how good Maguire was. The back line was solid. Why do you think Ten Hag decided that he didn't need to start with De Ligt and only gave him sort of 10, 15 minutes at the end of the game? Whereas with Mazraoui, obviously, he was thrown in at the deep end and played the vast majority of it.
I mean, not many people are going to want to hear this, but Maguire has never really let Ten Hag down since he's been at the club, whether it's training, whether it's games, whether it's being dropped and not spitting his dummy out. It's not easy to play in the Premier League. Maguire knows how to play in the Premier League, and he keeps doing this. Everybody writes him off, and then he's putting in top-notch performances. And he played like this last season. His performance levels haven't dropped, to be honest, since he had the bad season. He's been back to where we need him to be. And this is why I'm so on the fence about him leaving. Like, if De Ligt starts over him, there's not many players better than Maguire to come into the team, or if you swap in between them, there's not many better players than Maguire, because you know that he won't sulk, he won't go to the manager, he won't disrupt the changing room. Just get on with it, and he'll play football, and he'll play football well for the majority. I put in the group chat at half time, he's a beast, and people just, it's like people wait, they need the mistake to happen, and then they just remember that and not all the positive stuff that he did. But I thought he was an absolute spot-on decision to start Maguire, and that's why I said I only missed by one, because I thought he'd go with Garnacho over Ahmad. I thought he would go with Maguire over De Ligt just because it's the Premier League. And I know we talk about Maguire coming in and doing a cracking job in that, but when you've got someone Maguire-esque to be able to come in and play, you just play them, especially with Martinez back, especially with Dalot and Onana, who they played with enough since he'd been there that it's a little bit more comfortable. I'm not shocked by that, to be honest, and I think having that option and strength in depth is going to be excellent going forward. I do think De Ligt will dislodge Maguire maybe a few weeks into the season, but I do think it's a good complication to have for Ten Hag. There's no, like I say, we said it in a different show, there's no reason now that we sit there and go, oh, Maguire's played 29 games in a row and De Ligt's played 29 games in a row. That rotation's there, and the more comfortable the players are with the manager and the rotation, the better we will perform. I was just honestly absolutely buzzing with Maguire's performance yesterday. It was fantastic, literally all over the pitch.
Very good, well done. I'm going to have to push you towards this one, Stu. Jennifer just put here, De Ligt to her is more of a squad player in her view. Maguire occupies the berth in defence. I'm intrigued with your thoughts on that and how you thought they played. I think Mazraoui, he just came in and looked so composed, happy on the ball, pretty good distribution. I thought for him it was a very solid debut. And as has already been mentioned by John, I think, an upgrade on Wan-Bissaka in terms certainly of forward movement. Not sure defensively yet. We probably need to give him a few more games before we start claiming him to be the Messiah. But what do you reckon, Stu? I thought that was superb. And De Ligt, can you see him being a starting defender sooner rather than later?
Yeah, look, Dan's 100% accurate. De Ligt will be the go-to defender, no two ways about it. And that's a difficult one for Maguire to swallow, and Maguire fans to swallow. Jennifer's got a great point. But we've not really seen the very best of De Ligt at Juventus. We've not seen the very best of De Ligt at Bayern Munich. But he's still gone for about a combined total, John, of about 180 mil, something like that, 50 mil. You know, I think he's the most costly defender, something along those lines at this, in the present day. Not that that means anything, because it means dick. Quite frankly, how much it costs, it's how you play. You're right. I thought De Ligt would come in. So I had him on my starting 11. Mazraoui was absolutely a no-brainer. He had no choice. But as you quite rightly said, lads, as I pointed out, he's a professional footballer. He is. And there's a big difference between a footballer and a professional footballer, because not many people can go in at Old Trafford and do what he did and look completely like he'd been playing there for 10 years. He really did. People can say, oh, it's only Fulham, blah, 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 blah. Fulham played very, very well last night. They were compact. They pushed us and made us work. We had to earn that victory. But a little bit like what Ipswich did to Liverpool in the first half, till they ran out of steam, ran out of ideas. Fulham weren't going to do that. Silva has got them ticking along very, very nicely. They'll win more than they lose this year, Fulham. You see where they come out. But as for Harry M, he put almost in a flawless performance last night for a centre half. He really did. Forget about his dive, which was abysmal. And
that's right. That's really why you're saying almost flawless.
Yes, but what he did show was what I liked about. Okay, yeah, De Ligt. What Maguire did show that he's not shown in a while was not a competency on how to defend a one-on-one when your back's against the wall. but an absolute maturity and a textbook way to defend. If you look when, and I'll just be brief here, Baz, so just keep me on point, please. When you look exactly when Pereira picked up the ball, if you watch Maguire, he inched slightly to the right. So he gave Pereira two options. If you're going to launch it over to, was it Iwobi, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Launch it over to Iwobi, I ain't got a hope in hell. I'm out. I'm done. You know that, and I do. But I'm going to give you the opportunity. I'm going to make you think because I want you to go around me. My left, your right, and that was the problem. And he never closed the gap. Did you notice? He never closed the gap between himself and Pereira. He gave himself every opportunity, and that's what spooked Pereira. Pereira just didn't know what to do because Maguire inched slightly to the right. That was textbook defending for a centre half when you're up against it, and you know you haven't got the pace to get back. So all in all, I think it was absolutely brilliant last night, Maguire. I really did. I thought Leacher complimented him. But the good thing about this is, and hopefully I've got a few seconds left, Baz, the way that we can move, between. Oh, it's all right. Okay, between Yoro coming back, we could put Maguire, De Ligt, and we could use Leacher at left back, and we still got a solid back four. So for me, De Ligt comes in, but Maguire will play 29 games this season, no problem. No problem.
Can I just jump in? Sorry about the Maguire thing as well, especially the one-on-one. It's so annoying because if Van Dijk did that challenge, you wouldn't see people on the internet saying it was a bad pass from Pereira. There'd be reels and reels about how it was fantastic defending because he didn't close the gap, he didn't expose himself, and he waited for it to play out. And I just find it so frustrating because I've seen there's a Martinez one a bit later on where he gets back to clear the ball and he kicks it past the post, and it's brilliant defending. And I've seen it all over my timeline, but I've not seen the Maguire one anywhere. I've literally seen a still of it, but not a video. And this is what I mean by it's optics. It's because Maguire is not favourable. It's not all over Twitter when it should be.
It's outrageous, Dan. Don't be abusing your co-host privileges here. It's terrible behaviour.
Yeah,
it's a good point, though. John, I do want you to talk about Mazraoui and how good he was, and I do want you to talk about De Ligt, but I also want to focus slightly for you on Dalot as well. I thought he had a good game. Do you think that we could, I don't want to say hobble along, but do you think we could get along this season without another left back being brought in if we were to have the combination that we have at the moment, bearing in mind that we are expecting Luke Shaw to be back by the end of September, and I assume that Malacia has got to be somewhere close to coming back, because if he isn't, then I don't know what's going on with that man at all. Yeah. To be honest, he reminds me of the Ultimate Warrior. The people that are older enough to remember this, there was a point where the Ultimate Warrior left the WWF, and then when he came back, they actually thought the real Ultimate Warrior had died and had been replaced by someone who just looked like him. And I'm starting to wonder if this is what's happened with Malacia, because I've not seen him. What's going on? We've seen pictures, but AI is good nowadays. Where is the bloke? Anyway, yes, can we get on as we are? And what did you make of our debuts in defence?
I think on Malacia, I think Ten Hag said 2 months.
2 months. Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So we're probably looking at October for him, as long as nothing else happens, which will happen. But as for Mazraoui, I think offensively he was good on the ball, and he looked to pass in between the spaces and find our forward players and our midfielders in good positions. I thought defensively he did decent as well. He put in a couple of good blocks as well, and I just thought overall he put in a good performance. I think the defence, I can see that De Ligt eventually replace Maguire, but you got to remember we're in Europa League and there's more games in Europe this year. It wouldn't surprise me if they say De Ligt plays Premier League games, Maguire might play Europa League games, or vice versa, depending on what Ten Hag decides. I can see more rotation than usual this season. As for Dalot, I thought he did a good job defensively. I think we all know Adama Traore is, very quick, and he can be on his day is capable of winning the game for his team. I thought, I think Martinez said post match. I think the first attack he skim both Maguire and Martinez, if I can remember rightly, and he said I learned from that, and he put him in his pocket, but it all sent into the gym, I think was the phrase he used.
Yeah.
But I think Delo did a good job as well. I don't think he offered much offensively, but I think that's one area like where we talk about the 3-5-2 potentially, which we might play. I still think we need a left back. And while Delo he has improved, he can do a job there. But I just think that you can't rely on Luke Shaw anymore. Like if it was a Luke Shaw 4 years ago, you might do, but now sadly you can't. So for me, eventually you're going to have to find another left back because I think while Delo is decent at what he does, I don't think if he's going to play left the majority of the season, he might do okay in defensively, but I don't think he'll do well offensively as much, even though he has scored a couple of goals playing on the left. I remember Wigan in the FA Cup, I remember rightly, and I think he marked Saka out the game at the start of last season, if I remember rightly as well. So I think he's capable of playing there, but I just think that we need a left back, and unfortunately, it doesn't look like we might not get one. But I think that's certainly an urgent priority potentially next summer. But yeah,
I agree with you. You've all got literally 2 words in this next one because it just goes off what we just said. If you could only have one player in now, would it be a left back or a centre mid? Dan.
Centre mid.
Stu.
Centre mid.
John.
Hat trick. 2 words.
Just
2 words.
Hat trick. If you can have left back or centre mid, hat trick. I'll tell you something.
Yeah, you said 2 words.
I told you which 2 words you could choose.
Yes. Centre mid.
This is the right answer. Exactly. That's basically what I was getting at. It doesn't feel like it's quite as bad as it was last season. I'm also going to move this on to a slightly different question. First of all, Jennifer's popped in straight into the defence of Stu. Mr. Woolley should have all the minutes he needs. The voice of sanity reigns supreme on this stream. And I completely agree. But we are, of course, a fan channel, and that can be fans of Stu as well. That's not a problem. But I wanted to talk about this question, which is, Benny said 10 out of 10 on the dive, Olympic gold for that. So I just wanted to literally just go around quickly and ask what we thought of the Harry Maguire yellow. Because I've got to be honest, I put it on our Twitter. I did not think for 1 second that was a yellow card. I thought that was harsh. Now, I'm intrigued. So because as Jennifer is right, everybody should get all the time they need. I'm only going to give you 30 seconds to answer this one. This is a subsidiary question that has come up during the show that isn't one of my main ones that I'm thinking of. But I just basically want to know, 30 seconds, would you have called that a yellow card? And the person I'm going to go to straight away for this one is Stu, because yours is the one whose opinion I'm most interested in on this one. Go.
No, it wasn't a yellow card, and I'll tell you why. Because the defender was going to, and he had the motion to take out Maguire. Maguire saw it coming, but the defender skillfully stopped himself, and it almost went like that. If you can recall the picture, it was a brilliant way of doing it. And Maguire saw what was happening, didn't think the defender was going to duck slightly. Maguire then was thinking, I'm just going to get a touch here. I'm going to go over. So it wasn't a yellow card because it would have happened if the defender hadn't have done that. So thought it was brilliant defending. superb dive. I give it 10 out of 10. Gold medal material, but I could see why Maguire was doing it. Fine margins in football.
Yeah.
You're talking split second there.
No, absolutely. I mean, Box has put here looked a stonewall penalty to me. And here's the thing for me. I didn't think it was a penalty.
No.
Like, he does kick his foot, but he doesn't kick his foot in a way that's going to impede his motion or make him go down. So there is contact. And yes, he is going down beforehand. But falling over isn't a yellow card offence. Now, had he gone down and he's sort of like, ref, that's a foul, then I'm with you. To me, that's a yellow card. At that point, he's trying to sell it. But instead, he went down, sort of was like a bit, I don't think he did what I wanted him to do. Looked up, and then he saw that the free kick was being given. And then he's like, well, he did touch me because he could see that he was going to go and book him. And, of course, he did. And, like, for me, if I'm Maguire, I'm absolutely going to say, but he touched me. How can it be a dive if he's touched me? So, Dan, you're the Harry Maguire fanboy. Benny says it's not a yellow card. What say you?
I can see why it's been given as a yellow card, even though I don't think it's a yellow card, because I'm the same as Stu. He thought he was going to get kicked, so he's braced himself. It looks bad because the contact hasn't come. My issue is consistency. Go and watch what Saka did earlier on. Yeah. He didn't get booked, and he 100% dived, 10 out of 10 gold medal. So you've just got to be consistent with it. Yeah, I can see why the ref's giving it, because the optics look bad, but I don't think it was a yellow.
No. Okay, and just quickly before Johnny comes in, sorry. If you're Smith Rowe and you're seeing Maguire coming in, you're doing everything you can to get out of the way anyway. I mean, the disparity in size. Sorry, Johnny K. I apologise.
Yeah, for you.
Yes. I think
Johnny K.
A bit of a yellow. I know I'm going to be unpopular, but yeah, I think I do think he did appeal for it after. That's where I was like, no, we did go a bit like, come on, ref, he should have appealed for it. Yes, I do agree. I can see why he did it, but for me, he wasn't contacted, but he did actually go like that on the floor. So, and if you go back, he did actually do it. So for me, it's not a crime that he didn't do it, but yeah, au revoir, Barry. So yeah.
It's criminal, as they say. You didn't do a couple of roly-polies as well, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't a penalty. No, it wasn't a penalty. Because it was
your number there, Johnny boy.
But to be honest, the one thing I'll always be consistent on is diving. Like, I hate it. And it was a dive, so I'm not gonna.
And that's my point. It wasn't a penalty.
I don't care if it's a United player or one of my favourite players. If they dive, I hate it more than anything, and it was a dive. So for me, I can see why it was a yellow card. Yes.
Yeah. Although don't forget Mr. Brazil's famous words many moons ago, Johnny K. When a referee walked onto the pitch, he'd go straight over to Benny, yellow card, son, because he knew exactly what was going to happen during the game.
I think didn't Roy Keane use say didn't what's his name, David Ellery, Roy Keane used to go up to David Ellery and he used to say, you might as well book me in the sun kind of thing.
Yeah, I have that. There's a couple of referees that know me that say, yeah, I've got to get my cards out today, Mr. Woolley. I say, probably.
Very good. Dan, we are going to have to talk about the debut goal, the 109th debut goal in Manchester United's history, which is quite something. I did tweet out who the last two goal scorers on their debut were. It didn't read so much as a Hall of Fame, but it certainly was interesting. Anthony obviously was the last one to score in his debut, and then the last Dutchman, of course, being Donny van de Beek. But Zirkzee did it. Now, I'm just going to give you my thoughts as the goal happened, because the ball went out to Lisandro Martinez on the left, and he sort of did a little jink. It sort of missed the ball a little bit. It wasn't quite right. And I remember at that point thinking, he's not a left back. Why have we got him at left back? And then he puts a little ball into Bruno. And Bruno just absolutely, I mean, you talk about sending people to the gym. I actually said he sent him to the shops. He does a little bit. Oh, he just turns. And off goes the ball. And at that point, I'd forgotten about Martinez at left back. Then he gives the ball to Zirkzee, just outside the centre circle, at which point I'm stood there going, why are you there? Like, we need you higher up the pitch. Like, you've just been playing back so much at the moment. Then he gives the ball out, it ends up on the right-hand side, and then I swear to God, I thought Scott McTominay had done it, because when you watch it in real time, Zirkzee's coming in, but McTominay also swings his foot at exactly the same time. So at the ordinary angle, you do think Scott McTominay scored, until you realise that, of course, Zirkzee's just literally stole it off his big toe and put it in the back of the net. For me, Dan, absolutely superb bit of play. Now, he didn't get as long as perhaps United fans would have wanted him to have, but what a play. We have got ourselves there. He was good when he was working backwards. He was good while he was forwards. Again, just didn't seem phased by the play. What did you make of Joshua Zirkzee yesterday?
I thought he was really good when he came on. He's giving me Firmino vibes, in the sense that he's really good at dropping deep and linking the play. And do you know what? We've missed that, or a player like that. I thought McTominay had scored as well, to be honest. I did exactly the same thing. I was like, McTominay. And then when the replay was shown, commentator was saying he shinned it. I was like, he didn't shin it. It was a great finish in the end. But that dropping deep and then arriving into the box, I think we're going to see so much of that this season from him. It's just going to be interesting when Højlund's fit as well, how he rotates them, to be honest. But I was just so impressed with his application for everything, to be honest. He was keeping everybody honest, and he was working for the team, and he was putting in a proper shift the minutes that he was on. It was a weird one, but he's 6'4", and he doesn't move like he's 6'4". He moves like he's 5'6". It's really weird. I didn't for a second think that he's like tall, language. Like you think about Peter Crouch, the way he runs is weird, but he's skillful. He's like, the commentator described him as similar to Højlund in the game, and I was like, not from what I've seen. They're completely different players. Like, he's really, really good with the ball at his feet and linking play. And I think Højlund's more in behind, getting the finish off sort of a player. I think we're going to see a lot from him this season. Not to hype him up too much, but I do think he's that missing piece.
I think you are right. Yes, we ran this, Roy, Alexander Butner, Donny and Zirkzee, all Dutch players to score on their debuts. In fact, there's 16 players, not including Matthias de Ligt, who have played for Manchester United, who were Dutch, and he scored more goals than a quarter of them already. And yes, half of those people I'm talking about were goalkeepers, I know. I did not mean for this to come across negatively. I was absolutely delighted. I'm just taking you through my thought process as I watched the game. Naturally, I got up and went absolutely crazy. I'm not saying it was a terrible finish. But just so we're aware there, because I really don't want that to come across as if I'm like, oh, God, I want to score. Stu, for you, Joshua Zirkzee, did he tick all the boxes for you yesterday?
Well, I think Dan's absolutely summed it up to perfection, really, except the player he was looking for was Dimitar Berbatov. That's the player that was
correct,
that was going around your brain, I could see. And you're absolutely right in his play. So let's talk about the goal then, because Dan's, I've got nothing more to add to what Dan said. I think he summed Zirkzee up perfectly. So let's talk about the goal. There are strikers and there are strikers. Now, that sounds a bit daft, I know, but there are strikers that wouldn't have made an attempt for that ball because they would have looked foolish, and there are strikers that are willing to look foolish to get on the end of it. Because nobody can tell me, and I would argue this with anybody, that Garnacho's cross was nothing more than hopeful. It was just a hopeful ball across. Now, a lot of crosses are, but when you look at Liverpool's opening goal today, that's how you cross in specifics to a player. And what you done, Baz? And Johnny and Dan, I know what I'm talking about. The ball into Jota was perfect, wasn't it? Wonderful weighted pass. He knew what he was doing with it. We were kind of running out of momentum at that time. The ball had gone across, and Zirkzee was just jogging in Berbatov-esque wise, just jogging in. Suddenly the ball comes in. And when you've got somebody like, and this is the real point about the whole goal here, and you'd already picked up on it straight away, Baz. You were up in the air going, big Scotty Emmett scored. To have somebody in front of you, as well as a defender in and around you, to also try and attempt Scott, in terms of Scott McTominay, trying to make an attempt to play the ball, for Zirkzee to time his foot at because you're talking timing here. There's nothing else that scores that goal but timing. And you know why I'm going to say timing, don't you? Because of the pace of the ball was what put it past the goalkeeper. It wasn't the power from Zirkzee. It's the timing of his strike. Unbelievable goal. I don't care what anyone says, unbelievable. Now, people were running at Garnacho, but it was a hopeful pass. It really was. So when you put all those into account, it was a top finish. I mean, the goalkeeper just like, where the fuck's he? How's that gone? I mean, didn't Gary Neville think it was an own goal at one point?
He's an idiot.
No, but they did. He said it was an own goal, and then but Zirkzee knew, peeled away behind the goal, didn't know what to do because he hadn't got a clue what he'd just done. I'm not saying he was surprised, but I think the adrenaline just got too much of him. He didn't quite know what to do, did he? And then starts doing this little sway of the hips and all of that, and then everybody's with him. And so I think Dan, in answer to your question quickly, have I got time, Buzz?
Yeah, you can have another 30 seconds. I'm in the middle of laughing still.
Thanks. In answer to your question, Dan, that's why I think we can go to 3 at the back and play 2 up top. I think they can complement each other based on what you were saying. Based on your description of the way that Zirkzee plays, he can complement Højlund because they're 2 different types of player, completely different. So, brilliant goal. Absolutely brilliant goal. It really, really was a brilliant goal. Sorry, Johnny, if I've stolen anything you wanted.
You're fine. I've got to say it. I did not touch anything. Genuinely, my hands were not on the
What were you doing?
Either you've jumped in and pushed a button, or Dan's been playing silly button with the button. Because my hands were completely off. And I'll tell you how I know this, right? Because during the time when that happened, this question had popped up about the Dutch player. And I knew the answer to that one. That one wasn't a problem. But Box had asked a question as well, slightly different, I think. Here it is. Who scored in their debut versus Wigan in 2012? And at the point when all of that happened, I was sat there going, my iPad's there. I could just have a little look and I'd find that quite easy. Like that. I demand VAR. So I'm looking like that. I'm looking next thing I know, I'm up like that. I'm like, how's that happened? So, no, I'm not having that. That wasn't me not having it. Joshua Zirkzee, what did you make of him, mate?
Yeah, very good, and it was a top class finish. I do agree, with the Berbatov. The goal it reminded me of was you remember that game he scored 5 against Blackburn. That his hat trick goal where he passed it out wide to Nani, he pulled it back and finished. He reminded me of that. Should also be pointed out Van Persie scored on his Old Trafford debut against Fulham as well. So Zirkzee's not just on a rude. I was
going to say he did a rude, didn't he?
All our Dutch strikers' first goal came on their Old Trafford debut against Fulham, which is ironic. So, but yeah, I thought he took his goal really well. I do agree it was a hit and no cross from Ghana. But in fairness to him, he didn't faff around. It's the lesson of just get in the box. If you get in the box, you'll be amazed by the amount of goals you score in the season. I did notice that yesterday. We did try and get the ball into the box. The problem was that our forwards weren't anticipating it at times. So for me, so that was something that was noticeable, that maybe the coaches and Ten Hag are saying, get the ball in the box. And I think that's something we'll begin seeing. He described himself as a 9.5 Zirkzee, and you can see why, because he came to collect the ball, get involved in playing then to Schaff. You mentioned about Gary Neville. I had the honour of listening to Lee Dixon. He thought it came off his he thought he thought it came off his thigh.
Right? What?
Yeah, he thought it came off his thigh.
Zirkzee's thigh's about up here, isn't it?
Yeah,
Jake
I was like, how he got off the floor and he's a tall man. How on earth did it come off his thigh?
Jake said Zirkzee is enormous.
He is.
He's absolutely, Jake. He's absolutely enormous. When you see him, Dad,
I didn't know. Yeah, because I noticed when he came on, because he came with Garnacho. I know Garnacho isn't the tallest, is he? But when the camera peeved, he's
massive
huge. But no, he's no. I thought Zirkzee played very well, and he's the type of player that like when we play Liverpool in a couple of months, a couple of weeks. We all know Van Dijk. He likes a battle. Well, Zirkzee might be the type of player, looking at the build of him. He might be one where it's like, I relish that challenge kind of thing because of the sheer size of him potentially. So we got. Ten Hag's got a headache whether he's going to play at Brighton. I would like to see him start potentially the Liverpool game if he's ready, because I think that might be an asset for us. But he took his goal really well. It was a faint deft touch, as it were. And I thought, like I said, we deserved the win there. At one stage, it was looking like a draw, but it was a nice touch and a very well taken goal on debut.
And yes, Connie, you must have missed that. We said that.
I thought somebody scored at first as well. So.
And I would have been delighted if he had, because I'd literally put a tweet out when he came on. Can Super Scott McTominay continue his goal scoring form from last season? And I was literally just going to quote tweet that with, yes, he can.
You know what? I'm going to credit John Champion here.
Bloody hell. Not everyone I know who John Champion is.
Yeah, I'm going to credit him here because with 10 minutes ago, we said if it finishes 0-0, these fans will be unfortunate because there hasn't been a 0-0 draw between Fulham and Man United since 1924, 100 years ago. So in fairness to him, he kind of he ensured that we won the game. Well, there was a goal at least. So, and thankfully it came our way, didn't it? So,
John Champion. That's a name from the past, isn't
it?
it?
It was John Champion and Lee Dixon.
Oh, Lee Dixon.
Oh,
Is that on ESPN, was it?
Pardon?
ESPN or...
No, it was on P. It was on the USA network that we get. And what else was I? Oh, yeah, I'm not a fan of... I do like McTominay, but Lee Dixon was like, United will be stupid to get rid of McTominay. He's never had a bad game for United. I don't care if you're the vet. I don't care if you're McTominay's biggest fan. And I do like McTominay. I'll say he's never had a bad game for United. He's honestly an idiot.
There you go. No, absolutely. We're getting all the old school commentators in there. People are going to start talking about Wolstenholme next if this carries on. Right. We've reached that point. It's like an hour gone, and we are trying to keep them between an hour and 15 tops. And I've got two more questions still to ask. So I'm going to have to, Benny, I'm sorry. I know that you've just put here, scrap this time in it like I want VAR scrap at the time. Down. That's the point.
Well, there's something in America called the filibuster, which is trying to scrap as well.
We used to, back in the day, I can remember there being when I was trying to get into American football, there was a show, I don't know if it's still called it, but I think it's called something like Beat the Buzzer or something like that, or Never Mind the Buzzer or something like that. And it's just literally a case of they'll come up with something that's happened in the news and you've got about 30 seconds to put your opinion on it across, and then once the buzzer goes, it moves on to the next subject, and there's about 20 of them, and it made me giggle. I used to enjoy watching the journalists and the people that are on get flustered as they try to get everything across that they wanted to. But simple one, this one, so I'm going to give you 90 seconds for this one, which is good because otherwise we'll all just end up really going on about it. There was no Sancho on the bench. He's down as having had an ear infection, apparently. There was also no Pelistri. Obviously, Matthias de Ligt went on there, as did Johnny Evans, having been pushed out of the starting lineup. So, the first question is simply this. Should we read anything more into that, especially seeing as how Erik ten Hag has told us that there was an ear infection? It was just a case of not needing him on there. Toby Collier was there, but he's a different type of player. So should we read anything into the fact that there was no Sancho and no Pellistri on the bench? Dan, your 90 second starts now.
Pellistri, I think, will leave on loan. So I don't think we'll see him anyway. The Sancho one, I wouldn't read too much into it personally, but I personally think it's a bit of a test for Sancho from the management team. See how he responds in training to being left out at the first game of the season. He's not earned his way back in pre-season because his performances haven't been fantastic. So how does he respond now? Does he do what he did last time and go off in a sulk, or does he knuckle down, get himself back into the team? So I wouldn't read too much into it, but I definitely don't believe that it's just an ear infection, let's say. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how Sancho responds, but I wouldn't be shocked to see him leave as well, to be honest, before the end of the transfer window.
Very good, well done. Stu, Connor's put here, Ollie said Sancho arrived at United with an ear infection when he signed, so it could be a repeat thing, although I expect him to go, to be honest. So what do you reckon?
Yeah, this long-standing ear infection that's has made him hard of hearing throughout all his Manchester United career. Yeah, he's gone. So for me, Sancho's done. I think he wants out, actually. I really do. And I think we want him gone. I do subscribe to Dan's theory. It could be a test, but I think you'll see a PSG deal materialise for both Ugarte and Sancho over the next few days. Pellistri goes out on loan, probably someone like back to Granada or someone like that. But yeah, but Pellestri's on thin ice now as well. Medjugorje, thin ice. I think you can. Oh, sorry, you didn't even ask me about Medjugorje, but I think those are the three that are likely to go. But Sancho's gone for me. It's a done deal somewhere. He's gone.
John?
Sancho being left out United's squad, Ugarte left out PSG squad, and I think it might be coincidence. I think there's something, and apparently there have been one or two reports saying that Sancho could and was perfectly fit to be in the squad yesterday. So for me, make of that what you will. So have I missed something? I didn't read that. But
my dog thinks Sancho's it's
a bit rough.
Like it. I just think it's brilliant.
Yeah. So, but no, I think I agree with you. I think some kind of deal will probably happen. So, yeah.
There we go. Very good. You can all have a very quick go at answering this question. Can you see us buying a new attacker if Sancho and Pellistri leave? You can give me a yes and who, or a no, and that's it, really. So, Dan, can you?
No, I think centre mid and left back's more important.
Okay. Stu?
I don't think we will, but yes, if you can get Tony in for anything between 30 and 38 million. That's the only one. If you can't, then no.
John?
No. I don't think so.
No. Interesting. Okay. NT came up earlier with what the one thing for our fans, thinking he's one of our own about McTominay to wind Fulham up. On the one hand, it was funny, but on the other hand, it feels a bit disrespectful to Scott too. I would say that's probably just football fans being football fans.
Yeah.
The latest room is he's interested in Napoli now.
Well, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? He's 28 years old. Why wouldn't you go and spend 3 or 4 years out in Naples? Same with Sancho. Get yourself off to someone.
No disrespect of Fulham, but Napoli, you might win a trophy or two there potentially, couldn't you, in Italy? So, you know
where McTominay would fit in really well? Apologies, Bayern Munich.
Well, they were linked with him last summer, weren't they?
It'd be perfect for Bayern Munich, McTominay. But anyway, what do I know?
Okay. My last question. And we've actually got nothing to do with United on this one. It's a completely general football topic. But I've actually come to the decision now in my mind that we do need to scrap VAR. Now, I'll tell you why I've come to that decision, and it might surprise you, and then I just want to know what you think about it. And basically what I've come up with is that we need to scrap VAR purely because it doesn't matter whether we've got VAR or whether we haven't got VAR. What basically matters now is the fact that the problem with football fans in general is that the issue isn't VAR, it's just they disagree with the decision that's been made. So the easy thing to do is to blame VAR. We spent a whole season and a bit with people moaning about how VAR has just got in too much in the game. There's too many stoppages. It's terrible. They're re-refereeing the game. And then today, and I wasn't planning to talk about this, but I watched the West Ham Villa game before we came on live. And there's a penalty given for West Ham. Now, some might call it a penalty that was a bit harsh because the defender does get a touch on the ball. Then, having got a touch on the ball, he literally wraps his legs completely around the defender, the attacker, and brings him down. Now, the referee says penalty. Stockley Park looks at it, listens to what he says, and says, well, that's what you think. Yeah, I can't argue with that. Fine, crack on, it's a penalty. And then the world goes, and I say the world, half the world goes, well, he got a touch on the ball. That's a clear and obvious error. So the problem isn't VAR. It genuinely isn't. The problem is people want VAR scrapped because it doesn't agree with what you want. And we've hit a point, I think, in the world where actually supporters' opinions have hit that point where it doesn't actually matter, because everybody, all those people that are saying now, let's scrap VAR because it's just absolute rubbish, they've made the wrong decision, are the same people that were saying we want the referee's decision on the field to carry the weight and to stand unless there is a clear error. If he says, I've seen his legs getting wrapped around him and he's brought him down, is that not the case? So my question to you, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes for this because it's a slightly more emotive topic, is just your general thoughts on how VAR has been this weekend. Because we didn't spot it on Friday. It was barely there, all in the background. Didn't really happen. I think there was one look, and that was whether or not Ahmed was a foul, and it wasn't, so it wasn't a problem. But there's been a couple of things. There has been a geezer that went off to the screen on the opposite side of the argument, went to the screen to watch the VAR, and there was nothing on the screen. And they've just said to him, we think you're wrong. So he's gone, all right, fine, I'll change my mind. It's not a penalty. Of course, that was against Everton. So Sean Dyche is absolutely fuming. But based on what we've seen so far, what are we thinking in the opening weekend? I'm going to go the other way around. John, you can begin this one.
Yeah, well, VAR obviously stands for Video Assistant Referee. So it's not actually the technology. It's a person, it's a referee who's making that decision using the technology. So it's, in my view, VAR will not work. If you look at sports that have similar systems, the best examples where it works for me is cricket and tennis. What do they have in common? The player or the team have the right to appeal if the referee or the umpire makes a bad decision. For me, VAR needs to be something like that, where teams get maybe 2 or 3 where they can appeal a referee's decision on the pitch, and basically and the referee has to look at it if the team appeals for it. That, for me, is the only way where VAR might potentially work. For me, when they've reaffirmed it as only if it's a clear and obvious error, well, nothing's really changed. That's it, really. Like you said, I've not seen all the decisions. I've heard about it, like shares, red cards, West Ham's penalty, that kind of thing. But for me, VAR, it's spoiling the games. Yes, it does correct some things. I think generally for offsides, it tends to work usually about 98% of the time, and obviously they're bringing in that offside line. But for me, the handball rule is still as dubious as ever, and everything else. So for me, it's unless teams have a right to appeal a decision, I can't ever see it working properly. But the powers that be will never listen to the fans, I don't think.
It's very, very interesting. I mean, Connor mentioned about the TMO. Jennifer, you're talking about a second referee off which they had that. Do you remember they used to have the referee that was stood by the 18-yard box?
Yeah.
And that was about as much.
That was the goal line technology.
Technology, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was about as much use as chocolate and macaroni cheese. Yeah. Stu, your thoughts?
I think Jennifer's right. Actually, I think it's all about interpretation. Look, when I play and I scythe a defender down, and the referee's pulling me up and he's about to brandish a card, I'll try and grab all the ball and demonstrate a stud mark. There's about 19 stud marks on it, and I'll pinpoint where my stud was. But it's all about interpretation. The real crux of any issue that we have is nobody knows the fucking rules anymore. Whether it's offside, whether it's handball, whether it's tackling. Back in the olden days, the Matty Cash tackle, he won the ball. He did win the ball, and he sided the player down. Back in the olden days, you get on with it. And then Benny would have come in as a goalkeeper and absolutely smashed both Cash and Saka, the attacker, wherever it was at that particular time. That's how football was. But nobody knows. We walk onto a pitch every Saturday afternoon or Sunday morning whenever we're playing our games at Tipton, and I haven't got a clue, lads. I haven't got a clue. I'm going up and talking to the ref. How are you going to play it today? What can't we do? I'll try and keep it free flowing and all this kind of stuff. And then one weekend, I'm wrestling with a centre forward and I'm dragging him down. I'm elbowing him, and he's elbowing me back, and the ref lets it go. The following week, I'm doing it. Well, I wouldn't say that. I would say he's too weak. He should stand up for himself. But the following week, though, Baz, if I'm doing it again, I'm getting pulled up for it. So where there isn't consistency at our level, and I'm talking super vets. So I think Jennifer's probably and Benny have probably got it right. Really, I think John's position's admirable. I really take from everything. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer for it. That's unfortunate.
Well, you used to have a packet on, didn't you? And
I interviewed him for an hour, yeah.
And that's what I mean.
But this is the crazy thing. If they do scrap it, that decision stands anyway.
Yeah.
Even if they scrap it, you made the same decision.
Yeah. So, whether it's there or not, it's just one of those, man.
So, Dan, I'm going to throw it to you as well. The last thing I'm going to add on about this is that obviously they introduced on Twitter the Premier League Match Centre, or whatever it's called, which was supposed to give a bit of clarity in real live time of the decisions that have been made by VAR. And this very instant that I'm talking about, I thought I'll have a little look at this on Twitter and see what they've done, see if there's a reason why VAR didn't overturn it and what it was they thought. And I'll quote as best as I can what it said. The referee thought it was a foul. VAR has checked it and agreed with the decision. And well, that's not clear. We knew that by the fact the bloody penalty was actually taken. Yeah. There was none of us sitting there going, "Oh, I wonder if VAR looked at that and decided it was a penalty." So it was the most pointless thing ever. It would be like me going onto Twitter now and going, "It's Saturday." Well, thank you very much, Sherlock. They don't help themselves with silly little things like that, do they? Just tweeting stuff that literally everybody does know. If they'd been able to put in there a little something about, all right, he did get the ball, but in our opinion, after the ball has gone, there was no chance for the player to even try and get the ball because he'd had legs wrapped around him and he was brought down. You can live with that as a penalty.
So I actually know the interpretation. So they actually said it. I was watching it. The interpretation was Matty Cash didn't attempt to play the ball.
Well, okay. Sorry for butting in then.
No, you're absolutely fine because I didn't understand it either.
My question to you is what? Okay, in fact, I haven't got a question for you because I don't know how to put the question. Because if you've
if he touched the ball, he wasn't looking to play it.
Yeah, what was he doing then? Just
He basically said that he didn't go to make the tackle, and the touch was because he'd wrapped his leg around him. It wasn't an attempt at a tackle. It absolutely was an attempt at a tackle, and he got the ball. And they're just morons that are doubling down.
So, a question for you then, Dan, because you've always said about subjective. Isn't that a subjective decision? He does make contact with the ball, but could you genuinely say you're sitting there looking at that and going, he's definitely trying to play the ball?
But this is where you've got to take interpretation to account, because 4 referees might say that's not a penalty and 5 might say it is a penalty. So it all depends which referee's looking at it which week. My issue with VAR becomes stuff like the Shaw sending off. That is clear and obviously not a red card. I don't care whether he leant in slightly or whatever. It's not violent conduct. He's a bit daft for putting himself in that position. But everybody can see that Diaz is play acting. Everybody can see what's happened, including all the cameras, and we still send him off. That's just stupid. And then they put out the tweet now backing up the decision when they should have been. It's not a red card, it's a yellow card. My issue is that it feels very much like that VAR is there just to back up the referee, and the technology is not being used correctly. So it should be used for, we'll all remember it, Ashley Young punched a Southampton player in the stomach at a corner. That's what it should be used for. Clear and obvious. When you get into debates like this, like the penalty, if I'm quite happy for that to happen and it to be given as a penalty, and VAR not even look at it. Just leave it if you're going to agree. Just let the referee make the decision. Unless we've spotted something on VAR that is really outrageous, that needs looking at, let's just not re-referee the games. So if that's subjective, it could be a penalty, it couldn't be a penalty, but that referee said, yeah, it's a penalty, give the penalty, and then we move on. But it's just got to stop re-reffing silly moments in games. They looked at the Saka penalty, and I was just like, why? The referee's seen it, just move on. Everyone saw that he dived. Let's move on, let's get the game flowing. I'd love it to work like John says, where you can bring in challenges, but let's be honest, you say to Michael Oliver, I don't think that's a penalty as a coach. I want you to go and look at it again. Is he going to change his mind? Of course he's not. You've seen how the way they wave away players and they tell them to F off. And Fernandez was saying something to the referee the other day and he was telling him to go away. He's our captain. He's allowed to talk to the referee and he's telling him to go away. So they're not interested. The technology is not the problem. It's the people in charge of the technology that's the problem.
And again, I've said it a million one times, the ref should be the one that looks at the screen. If he should be able to look back at his decision and go, yes or no. Once they've seen it in slow motion, they can do that. Otherwise, you're just taking somebody else's opinion.
None of this yapping in his ear.
Exactly. So I think if it's a penalty, go and check it. Just make sure, because that can be almost fatal for a football team.
That's what they do in rugby as well, isn't it? Where it's like if there's a try, and it'll say you can have another look at that potentially. Yeah. I think, this is something that referees should also be able to say, I'm not sure I had the best angle of that. Can you show me a replay of it? Because sometimes referees are in the wrong position. They find it difficult to make a decision. So they might say to them, can you give me a camera shot of it so I can see it from a better angle, maybe? I just think that it just got to work better, I think. But
has definitely got to work better. You are not kidding. See what some of you guys have said. Benny said it was never a penalty. Like I said, the art defending has been attacked by the game's governing body to favour the attacking sides. Connor had said you're never going to get rid of it. Be like trying to get rid of social media. It's got its negatives, but it's never going anywhere. And then Jennifer as well did mention we managed 100 years without VAR. The referees are the interpreters of the laws of football. To be fair, that is a little bit like saying we've managed 7 million years or whatever it is, billion years without electricity. So we should just get rid of that. I think it's more about how we use it.
We managed thousands of years without cars and gas or petrol. So, we don't need cars anymore.
Exactly. So I just think it's about refinement. And to be fair, they did come out and say that it is going to take a little bit of time to get it ready and to get it right, but it's still not spot on. We'll finish today with what Benny says. Big shout out to Fulham United Academy product Angel Gomez, who suffered a violent head today. Hopefully no serious injury, but he's in hospital unconscious. He is. We've seen that. It didn't sound like it was very good at all. And of course, we'll add Danilo to that as well. He broke his leg with Nottingham Forest, which again did not sound too good at all. So indeed, thoughts are with all of those people. We have gone longer than we wanted to, but then I knew we were good in the minute we had Stu and John on. So we tried our best. We tried our best, guys. But there we go. And I blame Benny as well for telling me not to do the time limit. So you three are a bad influence on me. But there we go. It's been a pleasure. Brilliant game. We had 3 points on the board, a goal from a new player, a debut from a right back that was absolutely superb, and a couple of players who managed to get themselves back into the good books of the Manchester United faithful after having interesting seasons, shall we say, last year. It's an absolute pleasure. We will be back. When are we going to be back? Wednesday, I think. There will, of course, be the short form preview for Brighton. That's going to be myself, Dan, and our Brighton fan, Sean Misra, a guy who you would have seen if you've been on WFC. So we will be talking to them. That will, of course, be available for your drive home from work, probably at 5 o'clock on Wednesday. So that'll be your preview, and then we'll have the Wednesday evening show, which should be a topic show, but we'll get back to that when we're there. Other than that, follow us here, like and subscribe if you haven't already. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, at All for United. Follow these wonderful people at their @ just there, and we will see you Wednesday night. Ta-da!